Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. I know a lot of you out there absolutely love the old Stiflenought decks, so we're playing some more Stiflenought again because I really enjoy playing this deck too. So Stiflenought got a big upgrade with Modern Horizons 3, and that was Nulldrifter. This just gives us a second thing to do with our Dress Down, Doorkeeper Thrull or Stifle, because we can evoke this for 3 mana, and then if it has no abilities, we get to draw the cards, and then it comes into play, loses the evoke sacrifice bit. Or we can stifle that. So the curve of doing turn 2 Dress Down or Doorkeeper Thrull into turn 3 Nulldrifter is pretty good. And this creature slaps rather hard. So this was a big upgrade the deck got. It's card advantage, it's a massive yacht, and it means that we can play in 2 colours instead of having to dip into banned colours like we used to, where we'd have to try and finagle our mana base to try and get ourselves the ability to hardcast an array of the blue, blue, green, green, which just opened us up to a bit more problems with our mana base. But we get a much more solid mana base now. We get to run these 4 wastelands without fear, because we've got 2 islands and a plains that we can play off. We've got a bunch of fetch lands of different varieties, but they're all fetching our blue sources. We even get to play a Mystic Sanctuary now, so it's pretty good. I played this a little while back and really enjoyed it, so I wanted to give it another go and see how it feels. We've got our cantrips as well. We've got our counter magic, and we've got interaction with stuff once it hits the board. And yeah, pretty straightforward. Play one of these things, make a massive monster, protect it for a turn or 2, win the game. Love to see it. Fun deck. Sideboard-wise, we've got some Lavinia to stop some combo decks and things. We've got our own little Magus of the Moon, but in blue, which we can use to help some of those sketchy lands matchups. We've got Stony Silence to affect all the artifact decks. Containment Priest. This is useful for reanimated decks. It's useful for Green Sun Zenith, Natural Order style stuff. So that seems pretty good to me. A couple of Hydroblast. We've got some Graveyard Hate in Grafdigger's Cage and Surgical. And then there's an interesting one in this list that I found. It was running Prismatic Strands. Prevent all damage that sources of the colour of your choice would deal this turn. And you can tap an untapped white creature to flash it back. This is certainly an odd choice of card to add in. But we can prevent Psychic Frogs hitting us for a turn. I'm not really sure exactly what we want this card for. But this was the list we found, and maybe we'll work it out as we go along. Whenever I see unusual cards, I like to try and play the deck and see if I can work out what exactly it's doing. So without further ado, remember to like and subscribe, and let's just jam in and make some Dreadnoughts. I don't really like this opener. We don't have a game plan with it. I think we can do a little bit better. Yeah, we have a game plan. We get Island Ponder. We're working towards a white source for this. I will keep this. We have double Doorkeeper Thrull. I think it's tricky because the Stifle is the blue card here. We could just get rid of our redundant Doorkeeper Thrull and hope that we can stick the first one. And then we can keep the Stifle to go with our Force of Will to make sure nothing really scary happens. Yeah, I think that's probably where we need to be here. We're on the draw, so we get another opportunity to draw land as well with a couple of draw steps. And the power of Ponder can get us there. A Volcanic Island. A Delver of Secrets. Just a good old-fashioned Delver of Secrets. I don't think this is where we pick our fight with our Force of Will. We can make a 4/4 flyer in a few turns. I don't think we can afford to get a Tundra here. So let's just ponder. We're looking for a white source. None of that is a white source. Okay, so we can try and dress down our way through, but then we're still going to be looking for the other lands. This isn't any order in shuffle. Right, we found another land. It's not exactly what we're after, because it doesn't tap for the colour we require. Just after I was talking about how great the mana base on this is compared to the old Bant builds. Our opponent's Delver has not flipped this turn, so we're thinking Wasteland, we're thinking other threats. Or just a land, so it's probably the Scalding Tarn. Ponder, this means our opponent is very likely to flip the Delver next turn, but our plan is just get this Doorkeeper Thrull into Nulldrifter down and back it up with a Force of Will if we have to. They did not shuffle off that Ponder, which is not a surprise given they're trying to set up a Delver and get some damage in. They can always flip the Delver and then shuffle if they don't like the card as well. A Ponder. I'm going to cast this Ponder. My opponent might be thinking about dazing this. They did not think about dazing. Ugh. This isn't what we want either. This isn't any order in a shuffle. We didn't find what we were looking for. I don't believe Wastelanding is going to help us here. We can hold open our mana and have the ability to cast this Nulldrifter later on. But this Delver is definitely flipping. A Ponder, sure. Right, there is a black source showing us that our opponent is on a Grixis build. which is the most popular flavour of Delver at the moment, thanks to Psychic Frog, which we may be seeing in the very near future. Nope, just a Ponder. That's somewhat of a relief for now, because Psychic Frog probably forces us to use our Force, because I don't think we're beating the Psychic Frog if it starts connecting. There's just too many cards to deal with. Here comes a Frog. We will point a Force of Will at this. You can play around a Daze, they have to have a Force of Will, and this is worth forcing back. But maybe we can stick something big if things go well for us. Alright, so they have to force back, and they do have the Force. Pitching a Murktide Regent. The fact that Psychic Frog is just you know, what you want to play instead of Murktide Regent a lot of the time, kind of shows you how scary that card is. If we find a Dreadnought, we can try and put that in and stifle it. Otherwise, we're looking for a white source still. That elusive white source that we just can't find. I think we just have to evoke this and try and get some cards. This is a cast trigger, so we're always getting these cards. Alright, we found the white source, but it might be a little bit too slow here. We don't get to stifle this because we don't have the mana. We can try and put a Nulldrifter in next turn, if we want to. Or we can try Doorkeeper Thrull plus Dress Down. And then have the Nulldrifter in our next turn after that. But that means getting hit by the Psychic Frog, perhaps. And usually if a Frog connects twice, that tends to be enough to put them far enough ahead that they can stay ahead. Alright, they're not pumping the Frog. They're just coming in for 4. There's a Wasteland. They can take out one of our Wastelands. They just want to, they just want to crack our maximum amount of mana, so we can't do a Stifle Nulldrifter line. Blue. This looks like a Murktide Regent. This seems like a bad time for us. They have exactly 10 damage in play. We can chump block using our Doorkeeper Thrull if we want to. Okay, so we have a plow available now. So we're going to get planes here. And I think we have to plow the big boy. And then we can end step Dress Down and then try and resolve a Nulldrifter the turn after. I think that is our best way through this game. Does mean they get to connect with Psychic Frog yet again. We could Dress Down to stop them from being able to get a card, or we could stifle that so they don't get a card. The issue with doing that is that delays us another turn for getting the Nulldrifter in. I don't think we can afford that sort of delay. We are playing into a Daze here. They discarded a Polluted Delta to pump their Frog. Discarded a Misty Rainforest to pump their Frog. And now we're going to take quite a bit of damage here. So by doing this, our opponent has a lethal threat through a blocker, which is not ideal, as you can imagine. But we're hoping to draw into like a plow or something to go alongside what we're attempting here. So if we can plow the Frog and then block the Delver, we'll be in an okay spot here. But we need things to go quite well for us. Let's get this Dress Down going. Alright, I just have a Lightning Bolt and we are done. Alright. Yeah, tempo decks are good. So, what do we want to help us out this one? The Hydroblast can hit our opponent's Dragon's Rage channelers if they're running them, as well as hitting their Pyroblasts. The only issue with this is if they're running Necrogoyf instead, then they might not have many targets for our Hydroblasts. And that could be a little bit awkward for us. The Lavinia is okay-ish here. We can shut off our opponent's counter spells, but I don't think it's worth the slot when it dies so easily. The Harbinger of the Seas can shut off our opponent's alternate colours. They won't have any basics outside of one island. So we could use the Harbinger to try and cheese our opponents that way, and they won't have any red blasts or red removal spells to kill this once this is in play. So this is a potential option. And we also have the Prismatic Strands, which can maybe try and stop our opponent from getting those activated abilities in, but this just seems really expensive. I don't know if I would want to spend 3 mana in a matchup like this. So I think just Harbinger of the Seas is the only thing I'm interested in. But is it good enough? I don't really want to Wasteland my opponent in this matchup, so I'm going to board out a couple of Wastelands here. Because Wasteland and Delver is not a great way to try and win the game. But shutting our opponent off of black and red spells, I think is worth boarding in the Harbinger of the Seas for. If our opponent... they should be running Dragon's Rage Channeler if they're running Delver, right? Let's trim a Stifle for a Hydroblast. And then we'll also trim another Wasteland. Like, the Wastelands are basically... they are kind of a little bit more part of our mana base because we have the colourless cost of the Dreadnought. So they are kind of a spell more often than you would necessarily think. Alright, let's be a little bit of a coward. And keep in a second Wasteland. Iron Ponder, statistically we should be fine with that. I will keep it. Like, I think just attacking the tempo mana base is sometimes a thing that you'll end up doing, but it's not really what you want to be doing. So we get that basic island, just get set up. Go Gadget Ponder, help me out. Polluted Delta, Source to Plowshares, these are the cards that I would very much like to have. We'll put the Plow on top so it can't be Thought Seized away. So our opponent could be running Thought Seized. Like, Tempo decks, it's not uncommon to see them run 1 to 2 Thought Seized here and there. So I'd rather just make sure that we save one of our best cards in the matchup. Because we get to run good removal. This Polluted Delta does not find a basic plains. That is the one downside here. Right, let's just pass it over. I don't really want to play Doorkeeper Thrull into a Daze here. So I'm probably looking at brainstorming. We know we don't want the next card down. But there's 2 more cards that we might want. And the Stifle isn't great right now. A Psychic Frog. Let's cast a Brainstorm. We might find a Daze or something here. We have a Force. Have Stifle. I'm a little bit worried about getting Wastelanded off of us in key spells. I think I am okay to try and Force of Will this Frog. Put the Stifle away. And then I'll put the Brainstorm on top. Like, Psychic Frog just gets out of hand. If they fight over this, then our Plow is very likely to resolve. We can play around a Daze, otherwise we can go and get Meticulous Archive at end step. Since that's just better than a Tundra in this situation. The Brainstorm that we already shuffled away. I would like to just raw rip a land, but I think we can't say no to Brainstorm here. It is like one of the best cards in the game. So let's get this Brainstorm going. I'm just a little bit worried about getting locked here. Alright, we are slightly locked, but not enough to be worried about it, I don't think. So we can put away this Nulldrifter. I don't really want to ponder here. What do I most want to protect? Keep these 2 in hand. I think we might be putting Ponder and then Nulldrifter on top. We've got Harbinger of the Seas. Yeah, put the Harbinger on top actually here and just hold that one back. Then we can try a Doorkeeper Thrull in our opponent's end step, which may get answered by something our opponent has, but if we fight through some permission, we can stick a thing that stops our opponent being able to cast anything but blue spells. A Dragon's Rage Channel. They do have the DRC. Not a surprise. I'd rather just get this Doorkeeper Thrull in. Let's see if our opponent wants to fight over this. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Daze come down. There it is. So you can have 3 types in their graveyard. They're left on top. So this means we can try and stick the Harbinger now. The downside of doing that is that our opponent has the option of fetching a red source, floating red, and then killing our Harbinger of the Seas. So I think we're going to go slightly slower here, hold up Plow, and try the Dress Down at end step. Then we can either try and put a Nulldrifter in to play around red removal, or we can put in the Harbinger if they're down on red removal. Right, so I left the card on top, but then decided I didn't want it. So it was obviously a powerful but situational card, and they wanted to see if they needed it or not. So it could be something like artifact removal for a Dreadnought, that sort of jam. A Brainstorm. I put a card on top of their library off of the Channeler. So whatever that card is, it's going to be in their hand now. I'm sort of playing a bit of an intricate dance in this game. Another Volcanic Island. We're going to see just a Ponder here. So no Murktide this turn, which is one of the things we are holding the Source of Plowshares up for. We can snap it off on this Dragon's Rage Channel if we want to. We'll see what our opponent does with this Volcanic Island. If they leave it up, then we probably dress down into Nulldrifter. This is a 3-3. I think we can afford to take 3 here. I am worried about Murktides. Especially since that's one of the things they can cast if we remove this. Protect our life total a little bit here. That decision could come back to bite us. So we could see something like a Hydroblast on this dress down. But if they have a Hydroblast, they want to fire it now. Unless they're going to get really cheeky and try and deal with a Dreadnought. Because we can play the Dreadnought, then they can blast the dress down. But we still get the card off the dress down. So I think it is just correct to Pyroblast this if that's what they have. Which means that we can land the Harbinger of the Seas whilst our opponent has no red mana. Right, so there's the Pyroblast. So we've engineered this situation so our opponent doesn't get access to anything but islands for the rest of this game. That's the plan we've tried to establish here. Our opponent didn't Daze that, which is intriguing. Makes me think they don't have a second Daze. Which is why I want to run this one out while our opponent's tapped out. Right, they have a Force. So we've got 2 for 1 off of that instead. Okay, so now we need to rebuild and find a way to put this Nulldrifter into play. We can always just cycle it for 2 cards if we like, but Divination is not really a legacy quality spell. So we'd like to have the extra pieces to make that into a giant monster. A Psychic Frog. Alright. That was one of the things we were trying to stop with the Harbinger of the Tides. Okay. What are we going to draw? A Doorkeeper Thrull. Alright, I'm going to cast a Ponder. Okay. That seems like a lot of stuff, doesn't it? A little bit worried about Meltdown hitting these is the only issue. But I think we go probably just Dreadnought on the bottom and then the Doorkeeper Thrull. And then we can slap in this Doorkeeper Thrull in our opponent's end step. And then attempt the Nulldrifter. And then if that doesn't work, then we can just do double Dreadnought in the near future. The other option is to play the Doorkeeper Thrull here and then play the Dreadnought next turn. And if they try and kill our Doorkeeper Thrull with a red removal spell, then we can flash in another Doorkeeper Thrull. Alright, we don't get to do that. Powerful Wasteland coming in clutch there. A Lightning Bolt on our poor defenseless Doorkeeper Thrull, and we're going to lose this Tundra. So we can Doorkeeper Thrull into double Dreadnought. But again, our opponent is drawing additional cards. We can't really block with a Doorkeeper Thrull because it becomes very easy for our opponent to just discard a card, eat through our Thrull, and that leaves us with dead cards in hand. This is kind of the difference between a tempo deck that just runs a bunch of good stuff and a tempo deck that relies on A plus B, which is what we are. And if our opponent can surgically remove half of what we're attempting, then it makes the other half kind of bad. So they're just running good cards. And as cards go, this is very much at the tippity top of power levels. A DRC is fine. A Mishra's Bauble. This stops artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield, so it's not going to do anything to this Mishra's Bauble. We do need our Doorkeeper Thrull to resolve and stick around. But if we can just make 24 power of trampling, that will shift how this game feels. But this is our shot here. And if our opponent's got it, they've just got it, and we don't get to play anymore. Because we just lose to this in short order. I don't like this pause very much from our opponent. Another Force of Will. Pitching a Brazen Borrower. Yeah, our opponent's just got it all there. They put 1 card on top. So we just don't have any plays now. We draw a Dreadnought that's useless. And this is the perfect demonstration of having an A plus B tempo deck versus a tempo deck that just runs good cards. Because, like I said, our opponent doesn't need to do anything to get their 1-drops. They can just play their 1-drops and they're very good. And we're just going to get absolutely collapsed by this Psychic Frog. The amount of cards they're drawing is just too much. Now, if our opponent draws badly, we might be able to sneak this one because the thing we are doing is very powerful. Like 12-12 Tramplers do get the game won in very short order. But our opponent has incredible selection. They've got cantrips that get to see them additional cards because of the Channeler. Every spell obviously surveils. They're drawing extra cards every turn. It's just falling further and further behind. When tempo decks like Delver get their hands on a 2-drop that generates card advantage every single turn, it usually ends up breaking the format a little bit. Like Dreadhorde Arcanist and Ren 6 being prime examples of that both got banned in the past. So it's an uphill struggle to beat the old Psychic Frog. We do have White Removal, which is the best thing to get rid of the Frog, though. White Removal and Fatal Push. It's too late at this point. Our opponent gets to see, what, 4, 5, 6 cards this turn, pretty much. That's a lot. 7 cards, actually, because they got an extra draw, didn't they? At least they milled off the top card this time. Another Frog. Okay, so no Force of Will, but they can still Daze us. Actually, no, they could have a Force of Will here because they're getting the extra card off of the Bauble. A Mystic Sanctuary. That doesn't do very much here. We'll play it because 3 mana is an important amount of mana for us. But we take, what, 5 this turn, and then we take lethal next turn. It's going to be a tough ask to win this one. Yep, so our opponent drawing 2 bonus cards. Another lethal attacker. Cool. So they can attack us with 4 3-power creatures. We could Hydroblast this away, but then our opponent just attacks us for 3, 4, 5, and then he just picks 1 card. We're not winning this one. Yeah, we were absolutely and thoroughly taken apart there. And I think that's an important demonstration of how these sort of decks interact with each other. Like, the ceiling of what we can do is very powerful, just making giant things and protecting them. But we need things to go right for us, and our opponent's deck is very expert at taking apart the right things. Alright, let's go to round 2. We've got another one of these Island Ponder hands. We'll keep it. Castle Lochthwain. Let's get this Ponder up and running. I will get an island out. Our opponent's probably like fair mono black stuff with Wastelands in. Okay, yeah, this seems all pretty good to me. I would like this Lorien Revealed. That's Tundra. I'm into the dress down, but we already have 2, so maybe it's a bit greedy to go for that one. Depending on what we need to do with our Daze, we might have to play this game a touch slower. Rather than just going dress down straight into whatever. Because we do need to find that 3rd land before we start throwing these dress downs. Although we can do a speculative dress down next turn if we want. Because we do get to draw 1 mystery card after that. I think we're better off just using our Lorien Revealed and stuff. Okay. We're going to see a Thoughtseize over there. Do I care if my opponent Thoughtseizes me and takes my only threat? I kind of do. This allows us to just play things slightly slower anyway. We are a little bit behind on resources, but that's a-okay with me. Just play this island again. We can cycle this Lorien Revealed, shuffle that dress down off the top of our library. I'm probably just going to get another Tundra. I think we're going to want to come into play untapped white sources. Just another Thoughtseize. Just on the Swamp Cycle. Well, that's fine. We have a removal spell that is pretty clean at taking out the old trolls. If our opponent's mono black, it means we know our spells are going to resolve. A Dark Ritual. Nothing good has ever come from a Dark Ritual. Let's see what happens. A Reanimate on a Troll. Don't care about that. We have the Plow. Paying some costs here. An Opposition Agent. Well, let's Island Cycle. So as a Tundra. We don't care too much about the Oppo Agent here. I quite like just dressing down into Nulldrifter. That does require us taking 2 hits from this troll. That might be a little bit too much. I think we do have to take it slower and just respect our own life total here. We've got a Stifle that is unlikely to be that useful here, but it is still a blue card for the Force of Will. A Nether Goyf. Do I care about a 3-4 guy? I don't think so. I think if we can just stick the Nulldrifter would be okay. So we draw a Ponder. So we could Ponder and then also dress down, or we could just hold up this Stifle. I think I'm going to hold up the Stifle because I don't want to Ponder and then our opponent have a Bowmasters in response, or if they have a Wasteland, then we can't dress down at end step, which is kind of a big deal. And the Goyf, you can hit me 3 here. We're going to go to 10 this turn. But we've got a Force of Will for anything really spooky. Nulldrifter will be the biggest thing on the board. Let's just get them dressed down. If they flash a Bowmaster in response, they don't get to ping because this will be in play before we draw the card. A Swords to Plowshares. I don't hate the Plow. Should we take out the Nether Goyf? I'll take out the Nether Goyf. It could grow big enough to trade up into this Nulldrifter. A Doorkeeper Thrull. We don't really need that one, do we? Get ourselves a big boy. We don't have another Tundra. So if we want to cast this Stifle, we need to play this and crack this now for an island. We'll do that whilst the opposition agent is blanked by the dress down. We just get the island here. So we can hold up the Stifle. We've also got a Force of Will. I feel in a pretty solid spot here. We start eating our opponent's permanents. Also, the Nether Goyf exiling that means they can't bring it back. Which is another reason why I think it's probably better to hit that over the Oppo Agent. Especially since we can just turn the Oppo Agent off whenever we need to. A Dark Ritual. I don't care about the ritual, I care about what comes out of it. Shouldered. 5 mana. Is this just going to be a hard cast Troll of Khazad-dûm? That can get a cheeky Force of Will here. I don't think we're going to need this Stifle. Right, our opponent is not attacking into our 4/4. We get to start grinding our opponent's permanents away. I will take this Ponder and see if we can cash it in for something useful. I like the Daze. I like the Nulldrifter and the thing. How much do I like the Daze here? It can stop the worst excesses, like Shouldrids, if they just like go straight into that. So we're going to put them back in this order, and we will not shuffle. Place out. We could have committed more stuff to the board, but I don't think we have to right now. Like next turn, we can just Nulldrifter and cast the Dreadnought as well, because we'll draw a card of it. We've got this Plow. We can point at this Oppo agent if we want to. I think I'm okay taking 3 here, just to make sure that we don't need to point our Plow somewhere else. But then we can reduce our opponent's permanents, and then Nulldrifter can reduce them a bunch more. Let's Plow this Oppo agent. An opposition agent. I think we're going to flash in this Doorkeeper Thrull, and then we're going to Daze this Oppo agent and draw ourselves a Nulldrifter. We now do this without fear of Bowmasters to get some extra pings going. A Dreadnought as well. Reduce our opponent to 2 lands. Alright, that felt pretty thorough. Let's see if we can do it again. Mono black. Harbinger of the Seas, not going to do anything. Hydroblast, not going to do anything here. Prismatic Strands could do some stuff. It will prevent the damage from all of their creatures for a turn. But again, 3 mana just seems like a lot, doesn't it? The Containment Priest will stop our opponent's like reanimation things, so I think that's where we want to look here. Our opponent is not really big on things that we want to stifle. So I think I'd just swap 2 Stifle out for some Containment Priests and call it a day. We could board in the Surgicals to stop the... so we've got Surgicals and Cages here, which can stop the opposing reanimate stuff. The issue I have with Cage is it doesn't do very much on its own. Surgical Extraction can do something in response, which is kind of a little bit better. But the reason I like this Containment Priest is because this is also just a thing we can flash in and kill an opposition agent. And I think that's probably worth it. Like, we can try and counterspell a reanimation spell. We can bounce it. We've got Plows. I think I'm okay just bringing in the Priest here. Our opponent isn't like an Entomb deck. They're like a fair deck. Now, they might prove us wrong and they might be an Entomb deck, but I do not believe they're an Entomb deck from what we've seen so far. This is a lot of cantrips to try and make something happen, but it becomes increasingly awkward against something like an Orcish Bowmasters, which is going to be in our opponent's deck. So we could keep this hand and try and ponder, or we could look for something a little bit stronger. I think I'm going to believe in the ponder here. I'm not super happy about it. Okay, a Wasteland. So this is probably going to cycle for a troll. So we could just stifle this cycle. Is that what I want to do here? Just stop our opponent from having mana. It makes our days better. Yeah, I think I will. Might just be able to cheese a game out here. So I'm going to cycle this troll. No swamp for you. Ah, they had another swamp. I'd like to believe they drew that this turn. A Thought Seize. Sure, be my guest. This means we're not getting hit by a Bowmaster, so we can Brainstorm with a fetch land and just completely fix our hand now. Our hand is very, very redundant. Like, they could take the Daze, because that's the only piece of interaction we have. But knowing the Daze is there is kind of the same as taking it a lot of the times. So we don't have to worry about Dark Ritual into Oppo Agent or anything here. We can just cast a Brainstorm. Ugh. Yuck. I don't like this very much. We'll put back a Brainstorm and a Ponder, I think. And play this. Crack this for a basic island. Cast another Ponder. We need some actual business. I don't hate the Force of Will. Probably turns this Daze into a real card. So we go Nulldrifter, Flooded Strand, Force. It's a little bit slow and a little bit clunky, really, but it means that we can crack fetch lands into potential opposition agent without too much fear. And if our opponent plays around the Daze, the Force will get them. And then hopefully we're going to see why our opponent kept their hand soon. Like, are they reanimating stuff? Are they relying on, like, some sort of opposition agent to lock us out of the game? I don't know. Are they going to Dark Ritual into Sheoldred? They would like to reanimate a Troll of Khazad-dûm. I think this is where we fight. We've got to be careful about evoking Nulldrifters into our opponent's reanimate deck. That is another slight concern. So they can't cast the Bowmasters here. I would like to Brainstorm and Shuffle. I want the Nulldrifter on top. Okay, yeah, this is fine. I think we just get rid of these 2 lands that we don't want. We play this out, crack around the opposition agent that can't get us right now. We can go and get our basic planes here. And then we can dress down into Nulldrifter. And we're in an okay-ish spot. There is a Bloodstained Mire, so we can see hardcast Sheoldred, hardcast Grief. These are certainly things that our opponent can do to us right now. If this is a hardcast Grief, we flash in the dress down. It is a hardcast Grief. This will stop our opponent from getting a card, and it will cycle. It is a little bit awkward with this Nulldrifter, but instead of our opponent taking a card from us, they don't take a card from us, which seems reasonable. Oh, Phyrexian Dreadnought. Okay, so we can now Brainstorm into like Stifles and things without having to worry about our opponent having a Bowmasters there. I don't like these Wastelands. Yeah, not ideal, is it? Can't do anything with this Dreadnought, so I guess we put the Dreadnought back and then a Wasteland. We can deploy this Wasteland. Do I want to Wasteland their Wasteland? Honestly, I think I probably do here. It's either that or we evoke this Nulldrifter, but I do not like evoking a Nulldrifter into our opponent's reanimate deck. This makes our Daze more likely to do something. And next turn we can Wasteland their other Wasteland and keep them away from 4-mana spells, turn our Daze on a bit better. I'm okay taking 3 from this Grief this turn, I think. I need to be careful about things like Sheoldred. That's what I'm really scared of. A reanimate on a Troll of Khazad-dûm. Yeah, that qualifies as the sort of thing I'd rather source to Plowshares. A Nethergoyf. How big is this going to be? I don't think it's going to be that big. Sorcery, land. So it's a 2-3. Right, so now we'll just get rid of this Troll to be mana efficient. So, if we keep this Wasteland in play, we have the option of casting a Nulldrifter, leaving up blue, and hitting our one of Stifle. I don't think that's where I want to be. Then we're just going to take out their Wasteland here. Make our Daze a little bit stronger so our opponent is unlikely to be able to commit anything else to the board. We might be in a situation where we have to Nulldrifter soon though. This is 5. Alright, we're going to get some action off of this Daze, I think. Turak. Say no to Turak. Pro-white. This is going to pump their Nethergoyf. They should have done this pre-combat, so they could have got an extra point of damage in. Which is very relevant, I would say. I don't think we can afford to sit back now. I think we have to evoke this. Maybe we should have evoked this last turn. A Daze. Don't want to play out this Tundra. Or do we hold it for Brainstorm purposes? I think we hold it for Brainstorm purposes. Just have more cards to work with. Yep, so we're going to take 6 here. So we need to find a lot. Like, this Dreadnought isn't good enough on its own anymore. We can block the Nethergoyf, but then the Grief has Menace and just comes through. Another creature. Okay, we can't Daze that because we don't... It's not going to be useful enough into the amount of mana our opponent's got over there. Swords to Plowshares. We have a line. It's not a great line. I think we'll play out the Tundra this time. So we hold priority. I don't like this line, but it's the line we have. Cast this Phyrexian Dreadnought. With a trigger on the stack, we gain 12 life. This does not feel like a winning line, but it buys us another draw step. So what do we need? We need like a Nulldrifter into Plow and Stifle. No, still didn't do it, does it? Yeah, not sure what our game plan from here is. Our opponent has another 6 sewers just as a Surveil land. They don't have any blue spells in their deck. I'd be willing to bet money on that. Alright, so now we're in a similar spot to the previous turn. Let's cast a Ponder. That doesn't save us here. So this is an any orange shuffle. Nope, that's us dead. Okay, let's go to game 3 on this particular round. Do I want more ways of stopping our opponent's graveyard? Like, it wasn't really the problem. The problem was we just couldn't string together the bits we needed. I think I'm okay with how we boarded. Our opponent definitely isn't on the Entomb shenanigans train. We're kind of all dressed up with nowhere to go here. I think we have to mulligan this one. I believe in the power of Brainstorm. I think we Meticulous Archive, unless our opponent just plays out of Wasteland. So we could see like reanimate, cycle, do some stuff, or like grief scam, shenanigans. That would be the worst case scenario here. If they do nothing here, we can't fetch with this land because our opponent might just opposition agent us. And that would be the end of the game. So now we sit in this weird holding pattern around Dark Ritual. Okay, they're just cycling a troll here. I'm going to crack this for an island. Crack this for a plains around opposition agent. Yes, we're not getting maximum value out of our Brainstorm, but I think we might want the Containment Priest here in response to a reanimate effect. Surprise, surprise, I found a basic swamp. So we can flash in the Thrull against the Grief, or we can flash in the Containment Priest against the reanimation spell. A Grief. That is an annoying one. Because they flash us in, they just take the Containment Priest. If they reanimate it, then I guess we play the Doorkeeper Thrull. And that's reasonable. Or we flash in the Containment Priest now, so they can't reanimate anything. We lose one of these cards. We kind of have redundancy here. I think I just want to play this Containment Priest. Evoke is still casting it, so they will get the Grief going to graveyard, but they just won't be able to reanimate it here. But they could like Fatal Push and reanimate, and that would be pretty terrible news for us. I think that is better than doing the Doorkeeper Thrull and just giving them the 3-2. I wouldn't fault somebody for flashing the Doorkeeper Thrull in response to the Grief. Right, there's the Plow. Worst case scenario is Fatal Push into reanimate here. That is very much our opponent had all the things. Yeah, okay. So even if we flash in the Doorkeeper Thrull, we end up in the same situation there. Well, that went horribly for us. But it's not the end of the world. We've got some Doorkeeper Thrulls. We've also got a Dress Down, which we can use to try and dig into a scary friend. In comes the Grief. I think we will just play out the Dress Down at end step because it digs us a little deeper. And Undercity Sewers. Getting a little bit of selection over there. A Reanimate. We can flash in this Dress Down right now in an attempt to draw what? The Daze doesn't do it. Nope, we just have to let this go. And try and draw into a removal spell here. We're just getting the full scam. It's the scam experience there. A Brainstorm. Okay, maybe that can move some stuff around and help us out. We certainly need some help. Doorkeeper Thrull into Dreadnought is not nothing. We can just play this Dreadnought out now because of the Dress Down. I think that's reasonable to do. Do we want to Wasteland our opponent here? We've just got some stuff that doesn't do very much. We can take our opponent off of 4 drops. Right, our opponent has a 2-turn clock and we can't block their creatures. So we will need to Brainstorm into some more action here. Actually, that's not true. They're on 10 because of the reanimates now. Okay, no, we are cooking. Fatal Push, obviously pretty good against us. Shoulder's Edict, we haven't seen those yet, but I imagine they're in our opponent's deck somewhere. Yeah, our opponent being on 10 life here means they might be sending some creatures under the Dreadnought bus, which is good news for us. The pause that our opponent has now means they don't have an easy line to win this game right now. That's the impression I'm getting. A Doughty Voidwalker. Okay. They need to block with the Troll this turn as well, because the Grief is not enough toughness to block. And obviously Doughty Voidwalker can't block because it has Shadow. So attack this turn, we at least kill the Troll. So our opponent can attack us for 3 and then 6 next turn, which will still leave us okay. So I think we see the attack with the Grief here. Yeah. Can't block because of Menace. I don't want to Brainstorm and give our opponent a Brainstorm to dig for an answer with the Doughty Voidwalker. We just want to attack here. We can hold up the Thrull or we can Brainstorm in response to stuff. But the Troll block here, this will shut off Reanimates. I guess they could reanimate a Containment Priest. Does that work? I guess it has to be in to see itself come in. I don't know. It's already in by the time its ability is impacting, so I don't think that's where they want to be. We got a thorough absolute scamming from our opponent, but we managed to come back and win this one. That was tight, for sure. But 12-12 tramples are pretty good. Let's go to round 3. We are 1-1. I'll keep this. We've got a pretty straightforward curve here. I think I would I rather play the Tundra or the Flooded Strand here? Like, we can just stifle a Wasteland. I think we play out the Flooded Strand and we can get a Meticulous Archive going if we need to. We can also just get Tundra and Stifle. Alright, here is a Flooded Strand, as I said we would do. Opposing Stifles could be annoying. A Grim Monolith. That's something. So, Doorkeeper Thrull stops artifacts triggering. That could end up being relevant here. Let's get this Meticulous Archive. I don't think we're going to get Wasteland in this matchup. I don't want a Lorien Revealed. I don't think so. I think we're just going to just put this into the graveyard. We have the option of Wastelanding our opponent here and just trying to cut them off with mana. Or we can try and go big with the Nulldrifter. I think I'm going to hold up the Doorkeeper Thrull because it might be able to stop some shenanigans from our opponent. I think Paradox Engine is whenever you cast an artifact, so that's not going to work. A defense grid, you say? Let's chuck this Doorkeeper Thrull into play. We've kind of written our colours on the mast here about what we're up to. 5 mana in our opponent's pool. This could be something like a Paradox Engine, which means their next turn is going to be pretty brutal for us. Stifle no longer looking great. We probably have to get the Nulldrifter in. Another Monolith. And nothing else. What are they going to be doing with all this mana next turn? One wonders. I don't think Wastelanding here is where we need to be. I think we are very much in the let's dump our big boy and hope that our opponent doesn't kill us. I'm not a fan of this plan, but it's the only one we've got. Next turn we can hold up Stifle through a defense grid, which isn't nothing. The One Ring. Okay. This is where things can get pretty bad news for us. If they've got some keys, they can draw a bunch more cards. Maybe we can stifle a ring activation. Glaring Fleshraker. Okay, maybe we have to dress that down. A Vexing Bauble. Okay. This is going to give them plenty of things that they can sacrifice. The Vexing Bauble won't counter any of our counter magic because our counter magic costs 3 more anyway. They've got plenty of things to sacrifice though. And they just have the One Ring. Okay, so these are not pinging us because of the Doorkeeper Thrull, which is something. Let's annihilate a 1-hour opponent. They probably just get rid of a Bauble here. Oh, they got rid of a Monolith. Interesting. I think the play here is to stifle our opponent's One Ring activation. No extra cards for you. You've got to make do with that one card you drew for turn, like the rest of us, mere mortals. I guess they can also sacrifice the Bauble. They make Eldrazi spawn, but they don't ping us with them because of the Doorkeeper Thrull. So they can't just burn us out with the Fleshraker easily. If we draw a land, we can dress down in our end step, and then we can hold up a Force of Will for something. But is that better than stifling a One Ring activation? I'm not convinced it is, no. Alright. Chipping away for 2. We get 5 damage in. The One Ring deals them 1 damage, so we just need to survive 1 more turn. Another Nulldrifter. That's probably not good enough here. We have the ability to win the game next turn anyway. Crunch for another permanent. What would you like to lose? A land. Okay, I think that changes what we're doing slightly. It goes to 1 here. So we could Wasteland them and then dress down so they don't get any mana out of these. Is that better than stifling the One Ring? One Ring is going to draw them 2 cards. If we Wasteland them, how are they going to deploy that many cards? I think we probably start with a Brainstorm though. If we're not stifling here. That's just 2 cards our opponent has. We want to try and gate our opponent around mana. The dress down will shut off the Eldrazi spawn for being mana. Okay. I'm going to cast a Brainstorm here in case we find another Wasteland. Or, actually, does that help? Not particularly. We could find a Plow. Take out a Fleshraker here. Our opponent is unlikely to be able to interact with us given their own defense grid, but it's not impossible. They could have something like a Kozilek's Command, and they can fire this off and take out a Doorkeeper Thrull, which is another reason I want this dress down. So we've got another Wasteland. Do you want this other Wasteland? We just basically have to survive one turn. So we could Wasteland our opponent and hold up Force of Will. Is that better than dress down though? Because if we dress down, these don't make mana. And we Wasteland. So our opponent is down to just Grim Monolith and maybe a Soul Lands. That's 5 mana on their turn. They can certainly snowball that into more stuff though. This is a really big decision point. Are we stifling the One Ring trigger? Well, not the trigger, the draw. Are we holding up this Force of Will? I think we hold up the Force of Will. Kind of wish I could dress down and Force of Will, but that's not how this works. If we dress down, we are just fully shields down. I think I'm going to trust in the Force of Will. The issue here is if our opponent plays another defense grid. But if they play another defense grid, that's a lot of their mana gone. I'm already regretting not dressing down, I think. We can't stifle this because it costs 4. They've got 6 cards to win the game with. Some of those can be things that draw more cards. If we'd have dressed down, we could have just cut out this mana. I think we're either supposed to stifle or dress down Wasteland. So we do it in our end step and it dies in their end step. Urza's Workshop. That's only going to tap for 1 mana. A Vexing Bauble. That doesn't stop our Force of Will due to the defense grid. This might give our opponent a false sense of security. A Mystic Forge. Our opponent's got 3 mana. I think we could point this over here. And as the Stifle goes. Right, they're cracking the Warwolf for another card. That's good news for us. Alright, we managed to get that game. That was a really interesting one. Okay, Lavinia, sounds good. Players can't cast spells from the top of their library. That shuts off Mystic Forge. Harbinger of the Seas can shut off a bunch of their mana. Stony Silence, obviously very good here. So we've got a bunch of stuff that's useful. We still need to keep our plows in this matchup. We need to keep our forces. The Borrower, I'm not big into the Borrower here. It's fine to bounce some of their stuff. I'm also not really into Daze. Our opponent has so much mana in their deck. I do like the Stifles. Maybe we don't have the time to do all the Ponders. I'll probably trim one of those. I do like the Doorkeeper Thrull being able to shut down the little Eldrazi chap. Containment Priest stops from casting Eldrazi's off the top. But Grafdigger's Cage stops from casting anything off the top. So what are we going to trim for our last card here? Just going to be like another Ponder. I do like the ability to stifle some stuff here. I think so. We have less turns to sculpt because we need to deploy our big haymakers. So I'd rather have the big haymakers than the sculpting tools to try and find the big haymakers, if that makes sense. And we do need to keep the core of our deck because if we just give our opponent lots of time, they will eventually assemble the things required to beat us. Stony Silence is in our opening hand. I am going to keep this hand. We need to ponder into the right thing here, which is just land, which is the most abundant thing in our deck. So, and it can be any land, because we're going to get Tundra. Our opponent's not going to mess with our mana base here. We've got Plows for the Fleshraker. We've got the Stony Silence, if we can just get that into play and shut off all of the fast mana artifacts. Oh, the One Ring, a bunch of stuff. Our opponent started with an Urza Saga. That is a pretty strong alternative plan. Vexing Bauble is fine. A Polluted Delta. I think I want to get an island, a plains with this, but I think we can get a Tundra with this one without any problems. But in case you draw the Harbinger, we want to have access to white. Let's cast a Ponder. Oh, I like the dress down a lot. Lorien Revealed is okay, but not a big deal. So next turn we can Stony Silence. And then maybe we just have to beat these construct tokens. And a Fleshraker. We'll see. We'll see what our opponent is up to. Are they making constructs? We have a dress down, which is very good at defeating constructs. Oh no. A Mystic Forge. Alright, our opponent gets a turn with this. But the Stony Silence is going to shred our opponent. And sometimes you draw your one-off sideboard cards, right? I think we'll just go get a basic plains with this one. Yeah. Alright, so we've shut down a lot of our opponent's stuff there. Now, they still get to use the Mystic Forge to play cards off the top. Alright, so our opponent is on the Urza Saga beatdown plan, which we have covered with a dress down. Alright, let's see what they get off of this Urza Saga. Another Vexing Bauble. So we have two options. We can either dress down immediately and just put a Dreadnought into play and try and get this game won, which I think is probably the best play, rather than just holding this dress down. So let's go and get an No, we don't need 9, we just get Tundra. It's fine. Let's just get the game won before we have to worry about anything else. We've got 2 removal spells in hand. Our creature claps for... It will kill our opponent in 2 turns. Even if they play some creatures we remove. 24 damage is a lot. The first game was a really interesting one with some very important decisions to be made. This one is just... We kind of smash with our sideboard. Just have a nice chat with our opponent, who's a lovely person. We have played some of their decks on channel before. They're a pretty good combo brewer, but it's a tough time to be a combo player in the world of Scam. Alright, we are 3 rounds in. We're 2-1. Let's keep it going. I don't particularly like this opener. I do like the Surveil lands, and I do like the fact that Brainstorm is Brainstorm. I think I'm going to keep it... I would rather have something towards our game plan a bit more, but you could argue Stifle is towards our game plan. It is the A to RB, if you will. Alright, a Bayou over there. Our opponent is a fan of the channel. Okay, just a Noble Hierarch. So we might be looking at some sort of Cradle Control style list. That's what this usually says to me. Would I like to keep open removal? Would I like to keep open a Stifle? Would I like to just ponder here? I think I'm a big fan of just pondering here. Alright, we have the Dreadnought. We have the Force of Will as well. We'll bury this Tundra. This Dreadnought. We will not shuffle. So we could just... I suppose we can't just double Force of Will. So probably Force of Will pitching Force of Will. The other option is Force of Will pitch Brainstorm and be left with this Force of Will that maybe doesn't do anything. There's not many things we necessarily have to Force of Will. Springheart and Tuco. Okay, so we're looking at some sort of... It probably just is the Cradle deck. Yeah, this feels like we're just in full Cradle control mode over there. So we're just going to try and hit the one relevant thing at the right time with our Force. And then just do the classic Dreadnought fun times. Love a bit of classic Dreadnought fun times. So this is going to be a basic Plains, so we can't get Wastelanded here. Which means we hold priority. We play out the Dreadnought. Good old-fashioned magic. One of the reasons I love Dreadnought is when I started playing Legacy, like the Dreadsteel decks were kind of like one of the best decks in the format. This was a long time ago. This was about when Shadowmoor came out. It was when I started playing Legacy. And Endurance, we don't care about this. We just have a massive boy. We want to stop Natural Order. That's the thing I'm worried about. But yeah, so like I said, when I started playing Legacy, people were playing Dreadsteel and absolutely slaughtering me with it because I was pretty new to Legacy. I was playing like Machine Head and stuff. Once Upon a Time is not a thing I care about. Maybe I'll play some Machine Head on the channel at some point. Our opponent's still resolving this Once Upon a Time. So I'll keep rambling about when I used to play back in the day. So Machine Head, if you're unfamiliar with it, was like a red-black aggro deck. Elvish Reclaimer. I think we're just going to plow that before it gets to untap. And then hold up this Force of Will for a Natural Order. That's what I'm scared about. Natural Order or things that kill our Dreadnought. I would most like to draw another blue card. That would be the best thing to draw here. A Doorkeeper Thrull. That's not nothing. I think I want to play out this Brainstorm first. Okay. I like more plows. The Wasteland, not useless either. This pitches to this. This is also pretty useful too. I guess we put this. Do I want to double plow this turn? Or do I want to Wasteland? We Wasteland the Cradle out. Kill this. Nothing too sketchy can happen. I hope. Let's take out the Cradle. Let's attack and see if they throw anything exciting under the bus. Trample is big game. And then we will plow this in the second main phase. Because we don't want this to untap because this can find some scary things. Alright, we're going to see an Underground Mortuary, I believe, here. Yeah, they're going to get the Surveil on. So, Cradle into... what's that card called? Allosaurus Shepherd into Natural Order would be terrifying. So this is step 1. 7 mana, so many. There's a natural order. Okay, so we point this at it and say, get behind me. Don't want this. If they've got a second natural order, then we are cooked. Because this is certainly enough to create a hoof us. Alright, we dodged the create a hoof. We've dodged the create a hoof. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they can survive a turn here. But now we have a Doorkeeper Thrull to keep in check the create a hoof. And we have a plow. If our opponent makes a bad block, we might be able to plow here. Right, so at the moment we've got 8, 7 going through. What? 4, 5, 6. Okay, no, so there's 4, 5, 6 here. Blocking, so we're doing them exactly 6. So if we plow this, and our opponent has nothing, we do win the game right now. Because they'll gain 3, because this is due to power. So I think we're going to go for the win right now. And this should get our opponent for exactsies. And they've got 1 card in hand. This blocks 2, and they take 10 exactly. Alright. What do we want here? I would like the thing that stops natural order working. I'll have that. This feels like a matchup where maybe Prismatic Strands isn't the worst. Although Containment Priest also stops their scary things. The Harbinger can stop our opponent's cradles. But they will have lots of green mana. They've got basic forest they're going to be fetching. We're not rushing this out like turn 1 or anything. It's a turn 3 play at the earliest for us. So I don't think this is it. Maybe this is a Prismatic Strands matchup. This just blanks a Crater Hoof for a turn. That is exciting to me. I like the dress down. The Dazes feel pretty bad in this one. And I don't really like the Borrower when our opponent can just replay most of their stuff. That leaves us looking for one more cut. I think we're probably just going to trim a Ponder here because the rest of our deck kind of lines up nicely with what our opponent's doing. Let's see if we can actually win with the Prismatic Strands. Not what I was expecting, but maybe we found the matchup for it. I like Swords to Plowshares in this matchup. The Wastelands are okay. I think this is fine. I'm not in love with this one, though. I'd rather have like a cantrip or something, but we're on the draw. The Wasteland never stops the Cradle activating once is the problem. But if our opponent goes like Dryad Arbor or something, we can just crack that straight away. A green mana source into a Noble Hierarch. I don't think we're ploughing this one. A Containment Priest. Okay, so now I don't want a Wasteland either. I think we play out the Flooded Strand, so we have the option to get a Surveil land at end step. And then the plan is sit on this Containment Priest and then ruin our opponent's day when they go to cast a Natural Order or a Green Sun Zenith, that sort of jam. An Elvish Reclaimer. Okay, so we're going to have to plow this at the end step. A Cradle was very good. There's no timing where we get to hit the Reclaim before they get to tap the mana off of the Cradle. Because they have priority once it's resolved. Okay, we're going to crack this now. What is this going to be? I don't know. Let's get the Tundra here. X equals 2. This might just be like an Allosaurus Shepherd. And they're putting X equals 2 to mess with us. Okay, just a white of the Reliquary. That is kind of a tricky one. I think we still plow the Reclaimer. Would I rather plow the Reclaimer or the white? The white takes creatures out and is bigger. Takes more of our opponent's turn. Alright, I think it is the white that goes here, actually. Plays Tundra. And then we can do some Containment Priest stuff. And then we can start Wastelanding our opponent. Because our opponent needs land to make other lands with the Reclaimer. So we can pressure them on that resource. Whereas if they make lots of creatures and they have the white, we can't pressure them on that resource given our hand. Ooh, a Once Upon a Time. This is not really how our opponent wants to be spending their mana. They want to be playing the things, not having to find the things. Just a land. That's a little bit lackluster. But if it's what they wanted, it's what they wanted at the end of the day. No Green Sun Zenith here. So, is it better to just deploy this Containment Priest? I think it is. It frees up our mana. This means we can't use this as a pseudo counterspell. They might go get Dryad Arbor off this Wooded Foothills now. But this opens us up to having the Containment Priest in play, but drawing a Stifle and being able to Dreadnought. Prismatic Strands. This isn't the time for that one, is it? I think I would like to cast a Ponder. These decks tend not to run Orcish Bowmasters. Another Containment Priest. And a dress down. I like the dress down a lot. For obvious reasons. The Mystic Sanctuary is a touch slow, so we'll bury that one on the bottom here, I think. And then it's probably Priest, then the dress down. I think I'd rather hold up the dress down here. We can use this as an emergency button if we need to, but we can just untap and unload so much power next turn. Like we can Nulldrifter and Phyrexian Dreadnought next turn. Yep, they've got a 2/2 guy. Be my guest. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. Right, we're getting a Elvish Reclaimer cycle here. What are they going to get rid of? Is it the Dryad Arbor? They're getting rid of the Cradle. That is a little bit unexpected. That might mean more Cradles. Right, I want to surveil land. They have to do this now because the Reclaimer is going to be turned off for a whole turn. They're bidding off a Force of Vigor. Force of Vigor will be good if they have one in hand now. So we have an interesting choice here. We can hold up a Wasteland or we can hold up a mana source here. I think I want a Wasteland. So this is going to be a Nulldrifter. We play this one first because if they hit this one then it's not so bad. Whereas if we play the Dreadnought and then they have a Force of Vigor, they can take out the Dress Down and the Dreadnought and stop the Nulldrifter from coming into play as well. Whereas this way you still get to draw some cards. Yeah, so this is the exact play that I mentioned could happen. What do they pitch to that? A Dryad Arbor. Goodbye, Nulldrifter. So we could go and get a Surveil land, or we could just attack our opponent's mana base here. I think I want to attack our opponent's mana base. If we take out the Dryad Arbor, that represents 2 mana under Cradle, so I think that is the better one to hit here. We're not blocking with the Containment Priest, so this is a free attack. Maybe we get to do some Prismatic Strand stuff here. Okay, so attack with the Noble Hierarch so they can keep the Elvish Reclaimer back to do some manipulating of their lands. Makes sense. Another Dress Down is not the worst. We can't attack now. This Wasteland doesn't do anything while our opponent has opened the Elvish Reclaimer. But if they reclaim at end step, we can Wasteland whatever they go and get. So if they get something, it might be like a Surveil land, if they've got another one. But we can Dress Down on our opponent's end step, untap into Dreadnought, and be away. If they've got a removal spell for our Containment Priest, we can always flash in another one and really annoy our opponent. There's the Cradle. We should have Wastelanded that in our end step, but I don't have a step set in our end step, so my bad on that one. Ignoble Hierarch, don't care about that. Attacking with a slightly larger creature this time. But speaking of large creatures, we've got one coming along soon. Let's get this Dress Down going. Let's take out this Cradle when they can't turn it into anything else. This means they can't hardcast a Force of Vigor in our turn. They have to do it now. Alright. A Dreadnought, you say? Let's play a Dreadnought. Let's play a Dreadnought. Let's play a Mystic Sanctuary. And put back Source to Plowshares on top of our library. Let's attack with our 2/2 into their 1/2 and their 0/1. And we have Doorkeeper Thrull and Containment Priest here. We didn't get to use the Prismatic Strands this game. I'm assuming we're winning this one. Feels like we're in a solid position. They need to draw a Force of Vigor here. Which is pretty good. It will take out our 2 threats. A Cradle. Well, they got mana, but mana doesn't really go anywhere for them right now. They probably have the Talon Gates, so they can phase out one of our Dreadnoughts. Both in. We've got a Plow, we've got a Doorkeeper Thrull. Oh, just a hard cast Snuff Out. They got Talon Gates as well here. Seems like it. Yeah, so they're going to phase out our guy. Not unexpected. Let's just take out their Reclaimer right now. This phases out, but when stuff phases, it doesn't trigger like come into play abilities. So it won't sacrifice when it comes back, if you were curious. Okay. Yeah, Doorkeeper Thrull does a lot of splash damage against our opponent's deck as well. Not as much as you would, as like the old builds used to. Alright, there is a little friend there. So we can get a Meticulous Archive at end step. Sure, you can hit us for a sum here. I don't think we need to be worried about this just yet. We could just double block with a Containment Priest. I think I'm going to crack this first. Like, our opponent has nothing going on over there. They've got no cards in hand. Let's just see what's on top of our library and see how it makes us feel. Oh, we just take 3. It's only 3. We don't care. We have a Prismatic Strand that I really want to use because I bordered it in. Extra Doorkeeper Thrull in. Let's go for a little ponder. Our opponent's giving us the GGs. Alright, so that's another match in the books, and that is 3-1 going into the final round. So we can get a nice cheeky 4-1 if things go well. So let's see if we can put that on the board. As much as I love Swords to Plowshares, we can't keep a hand with no blue mana, so let's mulligan this. Well, we keep this. I really hate having this Mystic Sanctuary in our hand, but I don't think we can throw it away. I guess we get rid of our white cards since we don't have any white mana at present. Oh, a Cloud Post. Yikes, this deck is pretty scary. Right, we found a white source, that's good. Let's fire off a ponder. How useful is Stifle in this matchup? It's reasonable. We've already got the land we need now. I don't think I want to keep these things. I think this is an any order shuffle. We're looking for Wastelands, we're looking for a massive threat that we can put in off of the dress down. Ideally, some Dreadnoughts. Just double Dreadnought, smash our opponent one turn, move on with life. That's what we want to see. I'm a little bit scared of the Sowing Microspawn. That card is not our best friend. But next time we have Brainstorm with Flooded Strand, so we can shuffle away this Mystic Sanctuary. And then hopefully the turn after we can assemble some large friends. A Spirit Guide. Okay. Our Daze is unlikely to be useful here. But our opponent is going to play the best thing they can play with the most mana they have most of the time. So maybe it does something. A Disruptor Flute. Okay, what are you going to name? If they just blind name Flooded Strand, that'd be pretty irritating. They might just name Brainstorm. Or it could be like Force of Will. There's certainly some options there. Wasteland. Yep, that's a pretty reasonable one to name too. Alright, let's cast a Brainstorm. Definitely put this Mystic Sanctuary back, and we just put another land back, I believe. Play this. Crack this. Get a Tundra. Cast a Ponder here. This is not the one, this is an orange shuffle. Alright, Swords to Plowshares is useful. Playing a Nexus. Right, our opponent has a lot of mana. This Daze is very unlikely to do anything. So Microspawn. So we know they have an Elvish Spirit Guide in hand. So there's nothing we can do with our Daze here. Dress Down does not stop the Microspawn doing its things because they're cast triggers. We need to have like Stifle. This Cloud Post deck is so scary. Elvish Spirit Guide. Okay, so now we actually get to do something here. I've got rid of the Spirit Guide, so maybe this Daze actually does something. Oh my god, it did something. Now, we don't have anything going on. Our opponent has a boatload of mana. But I'll take it. I guess we probably want to plow this. Seems likely. Just get rid of this. And move on. The one ring, you say? Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. Doorkeeper Thrull does stop the one ring protection. Alright, the Eye of Ugin, which is something I'm surprised they didn't fetch when they cast their Microspawn. Maybe they just had it in hand already. Okay, so what is our option here? I think we're just playing the island and holding up the Doorkeeper Thrull or the Dress Down. We could Brainstorm in an emergency. But I think I like Doorkeeper Thrull into Brainstorm next turn. I'm pretty sure we've lost this game though. Our opponent's got so much stuff going on over there. Okay, they're just casting another Microspawn. Well, this is pretty disgusting, isn't it? This does not stop our opponent's Microspawn. Goodbye. Things we had going on. But we can still draw into like a Dreadnought here. And that will be large. Not as large as the Ulamog that our opponent can get though. I can fetch an Ulamog with the Eye this turn and cast it next turn. Their Cloud Post are tapping for 4 mana now. Sure, Vexing Bauble. Whatever. Another Vexing Bauble. How do we solve this problem? Well, we found a Dreadnought. That was definitely part of the equation there. I think I would like to Brainstorm. These aren't the most helpful, are they? I don't believe Force of Will is going to work against what our opponent's got going on. We're just going to get Ulamogged, and we can't really beat the Ulamog. Unless we plow it. I guess that's the play. Thanks, I hate it. If they just go get an Emrakul here, we do just lose the game. But maybe they don't have an Emrakul. I think they probably have an Emrakul though. But Ulamog can take out both of our lands. But we have a land on top, so we can still deploy the Dreadnought after taking out the Ulamog. We just got to hope they have only one big Eldrazi. Which big Eldrazi do you have? It's Emrakul, we lose. There it's Emrakul. Alright, I'm done. Okay, that was hard. Lavinia stops them casting things above the curve. Non-creature spells with mana value greater than the number of lands they control. There's only non-creatures. So it's probably not actually that good. It might slow down cards or something for a turn. I don't think that's where you want to be. Now, Harbinger of the Tides, on the other hand. Get in my deck. Stony Silence can shut down their One Ring, which is definitely a scary card that we don't want them to have. Prismatic Strand's not so great against colourless things. Containment Priest isn't great here. I think it's just these three, but the Harbinger of the Tides is a pretty big game. The Daze doesn't feel the most useful. That is a very true fact right there. I think I'll take out a couple of Daze. I just want to take out the third Daze as well. Or do I want to trim on like something like a Ponder? I think pondering into the Harbinger of the Seas is important. We need to make turn 3 big. No, I don't think there's anything else we want here. The only non-creature spells that they're going to be casting are 4-drops. I don't think delaying it for like 1 turn is that big a deal. Alright, Harbinger of the Seas, we need you. It's nice to be able to have a tool like Harbinger of the Seas, though. It's not something we used to have. Alright, we have the card we want most. We just need to find another land to stick it in. Let's sit behind these Stifles and hope that they do enough to get us towards the Harbinger of the Seas. Urza's Tower. Alright, I think that means our opponent's going to play something a bit scary next turn. So they play the Planar Nexus, and this gives them 4 mana next turn. There it is. Okay. If there's a Thought-Knot Seer, we can Stifle it. Once Upon a Time for free is pretty good. An Eye of Ugin. Not a big fan of that one. I think I'm going to cycle this Dress Down because of how important it is to get the land for the Harbinger of Tides. The one problem I have right now is Kozilek's Command over there. It's very scary. So I want to draw a land and a force would be like the best. Alright, we didn't draw either of those things. Alright, Brainstorm, help us out. A Meticulous Archive, and we can put a Dreadnought into play. We want to hide the Harbinger on top. Which of these cards don't we want? That's kind of a tough call. We're definitely playing out the Dreadnought. Do we want 2 Stifles? Maybe we burn a Stifle. We put Harbinger on top, and then the Stifle, and then we mill the Stifle with the Archive. Alright. Here we go. Is this going to be enough? Dreadnought into Harbinger of the Tides. It's the best thing we have. We're protected from Thought-Knot Seer. What are you going to do with 5 mana, opponent? Kozilek's Command on our Dreadnought is pretty annoying, but if they're just doing that, it's not the worst. Okay, just a plow. This means they won't have Kozilek's Command mana on our turn when we play our Harbinger. Which is the real prize. We want to find a land so we can play this and Stifle it. This doesn't make colourless mana, so there's no Kozilek's Command coming our way. Attack here. Dress Down is really annoying for us to play. I don't think we can play the Dress Down. Can we play this, evoke this Nulldrifter? Just to draw some more cards. I think we can. Force of Will is great. That helps us protect our creature. That's pretty big news. This gives us the Nulldrifter this turn. We draw 2 cards. This comes in. The evoke trigger goes on the stack. We Stifle this. We've got a full grip with Force of Will. And we're going to start chewing away our opponent's permanents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Right, they're losing permanents. That's good news. I think I will Island Cycle. Tundra, doesn't really matter here. Put Tundra out. I will cast Ponder. Another Force of Will is A-okay with me. So now we can just continue to crunch our opponent's permanents. They don't get to cast any of their really big scary ones. Alright, we're going to see a Sowing Microspawn here. This is going to go and get them a land of their choice. That's fine. We've got the Force of Will to counter the removal spell. I think they're going to go get a basic Plains and then cast a Source to Plowshares. There's the Ivugan that we saw earlier. Let's plow this. Alright, let's scoop it up. Okay, that felt pretty good. I think the Dazes are even worse on the play. On the draw, sorry. But do we have anything that is better from these selection of things? I don't think we do. At least Daze is blue and pitches to Force. Like, Lavinia maybe stopping an early Karn or One Ring might be useful, but then having a Lavinia to pressure a Karn is also pretty good too. But I think just having more blue cards for Force of Will is fine here. Alright, we're gonna go back in. This is for the 4-1 last game of the night. I don't believe our decks have a way of making this a draw. Like, is this a ridiculous keep? We have Force of Will. We have double Wasteland in a matchup where Wasteland is a great card. We just need to draw some stuff. I think for the sake of the content, we're going to keep it. Our opponent has mulliganed once upon a time. This is not what we're counterspelling here. A Besagi. And then a Cloud Post tapped. Alright, let's get our Wastelands up and running. Okay. Oh, what a world. Alright. We have our plan for the next few turns, and then eventually we'll draw into some blue mana, and we get to play the game. That's how I'm trying to draw this one up. There's the Besagi. This isn't one I want to Wasteland that much, because our opponent can just crop rotate it away. I'm just going to play the Wasteland out. If this is tapped, I will Wasteland it. There's an Urza's Tower. A Flooded Strand. Right, I think we're going to Wasteland the tower here. Do I care about this crop rotation enough? I don't think I do. I think we're just going to Wasteland the land they're going to find. Planar Nexus, sure. Say no to Planar Nexus. And we found our blue land. So cantrips and stuff are good. A Yavimaya. Source to Plowshares. So we can go get a Meticulous Archive with this and get a little bit of Surveil action, try and find our way into another land. And then we can maybe dress down into Nulldrifter, and then we're all just cooking the gas. No follow-up land for our opponent. That's what we're going to see from our opponent's big mana deck. Let's crack this. Meticulous Archive. Love the Surveil land. Yes, please. Put it on top. I don't think we can just run this dress down out straight away. I think we need to make sure we have the other land. Maybe that's cowardly. And we're supposed to put the pedal to the metal here. But if we don't have the third land off of our next two draw steps, then we don't get to put this in. And then it becomes a problem. We would have had it. Okay, sure. Well, we know what we're doing next turn. Strange game so far. A Cloud Post. Boo. You don't want to see Cloud Posts. Let's get our dress down going. A Wasteland. You absolute beauty. We use our opponent's Yavimaya to save our fetch land. A Besagi. That is irritating. We can't counterspell that. But we do get to go and get an island here. Do you want an island? No, we might as well just get Tundra, right? So this will come in. And then we'll just stifle the trigger. We'll play this Wasteland. We'll gobble up that Cloud Post. All four Wastelands are accounted for. We did keep the double Wasteland no-coloured mana sources. And now our Nulldrifter gets to eradicate our opponent. Annihilate, sorry, not eradicate. We get to annihilate our opponent's permanents. The One Ring? It is the One Ring. Say no to the One Ring here. I think the Lorien Revealed can go. Now we are really in it here. Let's attack. Strip out opponent. It's permanent. Let's go dig in for some more counter spells and stuff. We can also stifle this. And then we'll be stripping out two of our opponent's permanents a turn. Alright, we just need to fade this one turn from our opponent. If they have the One Ring, it's not the end of the world because we still annihilated them by attacking. Crop rotation. Is this going to be for a Glacial Chasm? That is not going to work very well for them. It's probably going to be a Planar Nexus and they're going to cast something here. The One Ring. Sure. We bounce this. We take out two of our opponent's lands. They have a horrible time. I think I'd like to cast a Brainstorm first, though. See if we can move some stuff around. I like the Stony Silence quite a lot. But I think we're just going to bounce this and take out 2 of their lands. I think that is the best play here. We don't need another Nulldrifter at this point. We probably don't need this Plow. We can crack this now. We go and get... the Mystic Sanctuary. Put Force of Will on top. It's just nice to have. We Petty Theft this out of the way. And then I think this will get us concession from our opponent. This won't deal our opponent any damage, but they will lose 2 permanents. We don't want to ponder into the Force because we won't have the second blue card for it anyway. We can pretty much just counter anything here. And then our opponent will lose their remaining permanents when we attack next. Alright, we got the match. And that is a pretty clean 4-1, I thought. The only thing we lost to was the Grixis Tempo deck. And like I said, they're doing very similar things to us. They don't hit as hard as we do with our top end. You know, like the Nulldrifter is more impressive than any of the creatures in their deck, sort of. Like when it's just a creature in play, I think the Frog is a more impressive card, full stop. But the Nulldrifter can just completely shred a board, and obviously the Dreadnought just wins the game in 2 swings. But like I said, our opponent can surgically remove the things, so they can like Lightning Bolt and Pyroblast our bits and pieces, so that we can't ever get our big scary stuff into play, and then they just chip away with some little guys. And with one of those little guys is a Frog, and they're just drawing an extra card every turn. We're just not going to be able to beat that realistically with what we have here. So let's talk about the deck. Yeah, I love playing Dreadnought decks. I love playing this sort of Dreadnought deck. I really hated playing the Rug Dreadnought decks that were around before Doorkeeper Thrull got printed. Because once Doorkeeper Thrull got printed, it changed things a lot. Because all of a sudden, the Dreadnought deck had like 8 ways that weren't card disadvantage to make a Dreadnought work. And then you'd also run like Uro. I didn't like the mana base of Uro, but I still thought the deck was fine, like the Bant deck. We didn't have to run like Urza's Saga, which I don't like in these dress down style decks. I just don't think they're worth it. I think we'd rather just have a solid mana base and then some Wastelands to tip our opponent. And that's what we have here. And it was pretty strong. So, yeah, I like these sorts of decks. Back in the day, trip down memory lane again, when I first started playing Legacy and like the Dreadsteel decks were big, they were blue-white decks. They didn't have dress down. They just had Stifle and Dreadnought. So they didn't have any Nulldrifters either. It was just, we're playing our Force of Wills, we're playing our Dazes, but then to find these things, they had all their cantrips, but they also played Standstill. And then they would like have Mishra's Factory to beat down whilst also wastelanding you and stuff. So they had a more control-y game plan than what this is, but it wasn't a million miles away. But, you know, back in the day, it had the best removal because it was playing Source Plowshares, like we have the best removal now. We still had Stifle, which was pretty good back then. It's still pretty reasonable now as a card. I think Stifle is better now than it's been for a while, just as a Magic the Gathering card. But I still don't think you run it unless you're either running like a super low to the ground tempo deck, or you're running something to go with it like the Dreadnoughts and Nulldrifters. The fact that our opponent besaged our thing for the Nulldrifter that we then just got the land and stifled it was pretty gross, and I enjoyed that a great deal. But I would highly recommend this deck. We're not playing any of the broken stuff from Modern Horizons 3 in it. Nulldrifter is not broken. It's good. But it's not one of the broken things like your Frogs and like the Sowing Microspawn, Nardu, you know, all the really big things that are shaking things up in a massive way. But this deck is really fun to play. It's quite rewarding, like setting up your A plus B without it being an all-in, okay, we have to do that. And Harbinger of the Seas is a really good sideboard card that has changed how this deck can play against some of those lists. I think with Cloudpost so big at the moment, and Eldrazi, I think I would probably want another Harbinger of the Seas here. And I would be interested in cutting down on, well, probably the Prismatic Strands, let's be honest. Why is this in the deck? Like, we brought it in once, we didn't cast it. It could have been useful, but yeah, I'm not really sure what this is from, what this is for. But what I will say is, it says prevent all damage from sources of the color of your choice, right? So this is not just combat damage. So you can save like red removal, but red removal is really only killing our Doorkeeper Thrull, and we're not really going to have a 3 mana to cast this, so this would have to be in the bin, but we don't have any ways of milling ourselves aside from one Meticulous Archive. So I'm just not convinced the Prismatic Strands is worth playing here. It was on the list I found online. Like just took one of the more recent 5-0 or tournament one. I can't remember if it was from the NRG tournament or it was a league. But either way, I just kind of grabbed what looked like a stock list, but it had one weird selection. I was like, yeah, let's give that a go. But if you know why this Prismatic Strand's in there and what I'm missing, let me know. But this doesn't stop Pyroblast and things. It's not going to stop artifact removal on your Dreadnought. I don't know. It just seems like a weird one. It's okay to stop the big swing from a Crate Hoof though, which is what we did board it in for. But I think we already have things like Cage and Containment Priest and just removal spells that are fine. I'd rather have like Path to Exile and another Harbinger of the Seas would probably be fine. Just have more quality removal. Or you could run a Prismatic Ending, which is fine if you're just trying to kill 1-drops. It can also kill 2-drops, so it kills Frog. So that's probably worth it. So I'd be considering something like that instead. Or you could just go like have another Stony Silence and really jam some people's days up. But this deck is great fun. I enjoy playing it a lot. I don't see why you wouldn't play Blue-White Dreadnought over other colours. I know some people were playing with Blue-Black Dreadnought for a while, but that was basically just because Psychic Frog is good. And Psychic Frog is not going to be in Legacy for the longest amount of time, in my opinion. We've seen cards like Dreadhorde Arcanist get banned, which have a very similar impact on the game, except Frog pitches to everything and has evasion itself as well in a big way. And is always drawing you cards instead of having to play with stuff in your graveyard. So I think we can, and it's also a much bigger creature. So I think we can safely assume that this time next year there won't be any Psychic Frog in the meta. When it gets banned, I don't know. But I don't think it's worth trying to play Blue-Black Dreadnought when you can just play this build. I love playing Source of Plowshares in a tempo deck and it not being a bad thing as well, which is great. Because sometimes you see people playing Jeskai Delver, where they play some Source of Plowshares as their removal because it's the best removal spell, but then them trying to just chip away at you for a little bit here and there, the Source of Plowshares ends up sort of counterintuitive to that because you sometimes give your opponent 2 extra turns by plowing their guy, and you kind of lose the tempo a little bit with that. Whereas this is like, okay, we plowed your guy, you gain 5. Well, I'm attacking you for 12, or I'm annihilating your permanents. And it's like, yeah, this is fine. So, yeah, not much more to say about this one. There's still fun stuff you can do, even though Blue-Black Rescaminator is everywhere. There are still good things you can do in Legacy right now. And there's still a lot of fun to be had. Even though we do need some bannings in the format, Legacy is still such a deep card pool with so many cool things. And you can play lots of cool stuff. Like every day on the channel, we're playing different sorts of stuff. And I think last time I played this Dreadnought deck, I also went 4-1. So it's a very solid list. If you put in a few reps, I'd be very surprised if you didn't take some trophies down after playing a few leagues with it. Deck is good. White removal is very handy as well in the world of people reanimating big scary monsters. And with that, we are done. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel out a great deal, especially in these trying times of Legacy where not as many people are watching content. It's always nice to get a little extra support. And if you've got any donation decks that you would like to see on the channel, maybe you think you've got the brew that beats Blue-Black Scaminator really easily, get in touch and we can do a donation deck. I also do discount donation decks for people who are part of any tier, any paid tier of my Patreon. So it's cheaper to become a member for a month and get a donation deck than it is just to get a donation deck. So why not do that? All right, plug over and done with. Thank you so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. And goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepts as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel. A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepts guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.